Chapter 18 Gateway of Truth. Have you ever felt alone, so lost and empty inside that you're not sure if you should hide from the world or run endlessly until time runs out? A feeling of immense sadness gripped me from all sides. Lying in a ball, curled on my side, I had journeyed into the darkness as far as I could go, but after only a day, it seemed too daunting, and now I became afraid of what the future held without her. How had my queen disappeared? She was with me only a day ago, and I wasn't sure if I could continue on without her grace. She was the woman of my dreams, the eternal goddess of all, and here I found myself in a dark space without her presence. All that was left was the light of the yellow sun far off in the distance. Ashamed of my past mistakes, I could not even face myself, and so I curled up for what felt like days. Time came and went, along with the most intense emotions. I felt anger, rage, sadness, despair, envy, and disappointment. But why couldn't I focus on the love and light of her soul? I tried to recall her sacred space, that bright orange light emitting from the goddess's body that brought me bliss, but she was gone and I was trapped in a world without her. For whatever my soul had done before this, it felt as if the sins of my past would haunt me for all of eternity. I could not even rise to my feet. Oh, this was hell. The dark space was a prison, and I was damned inside of it. Helpless and lost, there was no goddess to save me here. Somehow I was stuck in between, caught in a void, and I wouldn't dare show my face to anyone ever again. How could anyone accept me after this? I had done things in my life that I couldn't even remember, and if I was trapped in this abyss, then I'm sure it was because of all my terrible flaws. It must have been what I deserved. Maybe a week had passed while I lay in the gloom before I poked my head up. The light was still there, like a pinprick of hope at the end of a tunnel, but it was so far away, and so I rested my essence back onto the ground beneath me, where the bones and ashes held my body. I too would dissolve and hide for the rest of time. Now a month had come and gone before I sat up. The terrible sadness never abandoned me, but rather it hung from my spirit like the weight of an anchor pulling me to the bottom of the sea. If only I could recall what I had done, and I was sure this was hell, because I had felt heaven when I was with her, and now she was gone.
Breathe,
whispered a voice. A gentle wind crept beside me when I felt her spirit wrap around my essence. Was I dreaming? Her love was invisible and translucent, coming back to save me as a body of light held me. It was impossible to describe, but once I felt the air whisk on by, I knew she was sending me a sign. I took another breath and let her flow through me when her essence disappeared. She was in that moment, and her memory lit a tiny ember inside of me. Why, yes, there was hope to make things right. What was once ashes began to glow and breathe like an orange coal in my core, so dim and vulnerable. I peered into my own spirit, where a speck of the great eastern sun was rising within me. Way off, over there, I could see yellow light, and now it was not so far away. There was the chance that I could find her endless love. The wind crept up from behind, growing in force, and it pushed me forward.
Go onward,
she whispered. Stumbling ahead, I kicked whatever ash and bones lay beneath me. Why hadn't I made better choices before? Wandering about, every so often I felt her breath passing through my soul as she kept that tiny ember glowing within me. Without her presence, I was nothing, but that orange glow reminded me of her memory when dark thoughts clouded my view. Oh, I'd never forget her, and so I pictured us together when my ember began to grow. Time stretched on as I walked forward toward the yellow light, but soon I tumbled into the ashes when I collapsed after I had nothing left. Waiting for something, I pictured her breath coming to pick me up again. Day after day, week after week, I would rise and walk until I fell again and again, but her breath would bring me to my feet, pushing me forward. Tripping over and over for what felt like a year, I continued on until I heard voices up ahead. There was the light. It was finally here, and now I could see the yellow gate atop a staircase, and below it there were many embers lit just like mine. A collection of lost souls gathered at the steps of the yellow gate. Waiting for this gate to open, these men and women yearned for the yellow light, but all our souls were corralled like hogs outside this giant fence, waiting for redemption. These people pushed at each other to get closer, but I was too weary to make my way to the front. Then high above us, at the top of the stairs behind the gate, under the yellow wheel, the green reptilian goddess appeared high above us, like a lamp in dark days. Her essence shone down, illuminating the pit we were trapped in. The ground rumbled like an empty stomach when the ashes and bones beneath me shook as the air began to swirl.
Warriors of a world, lost souls of a forgotten home, I wish to bring you into a new way of life so that you can escape this dark catacomb. I come to offer you another chance, but what I require is all that is true. You must answer my question honestly if I am to let you pass through,
said the green goddess. The other souls around me were like wolves crying out at the moon, begging for attention, but I wept knowing she would never see my tiny ember at the back of this dense crowd.
Who among you will worship me? Who among you is worthy of another chance?
The goddess called down to us. Everyone else screamed for her, and she couldn't hear my quiet cries. All these other souls had traveled a long way to find her, just like me. But while I was busy, lost in despair, it seemed they had rested and arrived early with fresh energy. I had yet to conjure the strength required to press through the crowd of lost souls.
Silence. My request is simple. Love all, serve all, and tell the truth. If you obey this command, then you may pass through.
The truth. Of course she was pure and holy, but what good was a liar like me?
Who among you has love for the goddess of earth?
She asked. Everyone raised their hands.
Who among you is willing to serve all others with endless love?
She asked. Again I raised my hands, as I would do anything she asked. Whispers passed through the crowd when she came down the steps toward the gate. Beside her were two half-human guards, yet their heads were that of animals, and they wore a dark armored cloak. One of them had the head of a baboon, while the other had the head of an ibis. Both of these mysterious creatures reached into their cloaks and revealed shining yellow keys.
Who among you would never lie to me?
Asked the goddess. The entire crowd kept their hands up, but I had lied before, and so I knew I had failed to tell the truth.
Then enter at your own risk. It is a perilous journey if you do not tell the truth.
She nodded when the two guards with animal heads twisted their keys into the lock before the yellow gate swung open. An electric yellow current resonated between the posts, stretching across the opening, while all the souls remained still for a moment. Before long, one by one, the souls moved across the yellow beam of current and walked up through the stairs, following the goddess as she disappeared beyond the highest step. It seemed as if the entire crowd was moving upwards, but I had lied long ago, and although I was a seeker of the truth, I remembered how I had let the orange one down. If the goddess of the sacred temple caught a liar like me passing through these gates, then the truth was that I would never escape the weight of my own karma. This was the principle of her cause and effect. Crawling forward on my hands and knees, I stopped an inch before the electric yellow light at the edge of the first step. In reverence toward the two animal-headed guards, with my hands pressed together in prayer, "Forgive me," I begged them. Without moving, their eyes stayed focused on me. Each of them had a black eye, while the other eye was white. This was the marking of a psychopomp. Looking back, I realized I was the only soul left behind the gate. I must tell you the truth, and so I admit that I have lied to the Queen of Karma. I have come to absolve my sins, and so I beg for your forgiveness. I wish to honor the Queen of all queens, the goddess of all goddesses, and so I ask for your permission to pass through this gate so that I may have a word with her. May I enter?" The guards looked at each other, and without speaking a word, they closed the gate before me and latched the lock shut. The electric yellow light disappeared as I clung on to the beams while they marched upward towards the door atop the stairs. Trapped behind her gateway of truth, I collapsed back onto the ashes and bones as I wept for my own mother. I had lied to the goddess before, and I could not escape my past. But now I was left to face an ugly truth. She had left me alone and locked me out of her heaven.